In today's video, we're talking about silage tarps on the farm. My name's Eric. This is my 10-acre farm. I've been farming this for 5 years full time now, me and my wife. We run about 2 acres in market garden, pasture raised protein, and then we also run a month and a half long nursery sale in the early season. Today's video is just about a few tips about the benefits and downfalls of silage tarps on the farm. Okay, so for anybody that clicked on this video that's just looking for some quick tips on silage tarps, we'll get to that right off the hop here. Anybody that's following us along this year, just to see kind of what we're getting up to on a day-to-day basis, stick around. So for tip and benefit number one, I'd say that they do the best job out of anything to kill weeds, suppress grass, and I would highly recommend using them anytime you're breaking new ground. If you have like an old pasture that you're looking to turn into market gardens, that'd be the best way to nuke that grass before you till it in. Tip two would be that they are relatively inexpensive. If you take into account that you're good chance you'll get about 10 years out of them if you look after them right and you don't have a catastrophic windstorm where it picks it up and takes it and throws it into a tree or something like that. But so for the most part, fairly inexpensive. One thing I would caution is that you just get the right size for what you need. If you're running 50-foot lengths, then try to get it in 50-foot intervals on the roll. Sometimes that can be tricky depending on where you're getting them from. That way you don't end up with a weird cutoff. For the first little bit there when we were buying them, we could only get them in a certain length. I can't remember what they were, but we'd always end up with a 40 at the end. So it didn't make sense because you actually want to go a little bit more than 50 so that you have like 1.5 to 2 feet on either end to bag it. At least that's what I've found. And then your width too, think about sprinkler layout, what's going to make the most sense. We've bought 25s in the past so you can cover 6 at a time. So it's okay for between our 2 sprinklers, but then on the ends you end up with that 3-foot piece. So we've tried cutting some and it's never great. So just take your time and think it through with what you're going to order so that it works right for your farm. And then for a third point, I would just say it allows you to get out into the ground a little bit sooner. If you lay your tarp down in the fall, you can keep a lot of that winter moisture out of the ground, which allows you to get planting in there sooner. It also helps heat the soil a little bit, but not too much. So those are kind of the main key things that I would say are a benefit for why they're handy. The downfalls range, I would say that they're messy. They don't look that great, and for me, I'm hoping it's a means to an end. I don't want to have to use them all the time, but once I get the old seed bank for weeds depleted, I'm hoping that eventually I don't have to use them, and I can just continue to use mulch walkways to mitigate any weeds in the middle. The other downfall I would say is sandbags, you need something to hold them down. So you end up with sandbags all over the place, which can again look a little bit messy and they deteriorate. I haven't found a better way and cost-effective way to hold them down. I've seen some farms use bricks, like cinder block, but the halves, which is extremely expensive. I don't know if you had a cheap way to find them, but that seems expensive. So that's something to think about too. And then the biggest one is just plastic use. I'm not a huge fan of plastics. If you can make sure that you're using it for multiple years, you kind of offset the cost, or not the cost, but the environmental impact there. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. I hope that helps. All in all, I would say that they are handy on the farm and I would highly recommend using them. So let's get into moving some tarps. Spring's fast approaching and these are the first beds to get planted. So I just went through and pulled out the remaining crop residue from our winter kale and chard. So those are all just ready to go to compost. Next step is going to be I'm going to lay a clear plastic down underneath and then a black tarp over top. Okay, so the main reason that I'm going to lay that clear plastic down first is because I'm going to want to use that to solarize the ground to ensure that the temperature is good all the way down through the depths of the soil and the last bit of frost is out, being that we are going out quite early. These first plantings are always a bit of a trial, just playing with dates to see what we can get away with. So we'll lay the clear plastic first, cover it with black. I'll leave the black on for 3 weeks. I don't believe we're planting in there until the 1st of April. Maybe it was the 2nd week of April. So we'll use the black to kill everything. Once I'm a week out from planting, I'll pull the black off, leave the clear down just to solarize the ground, to heat it, and then we'll remove it, plant it out, and then use hoops, frost cloth, and clear plastic to ensure that the baby crops don't freeze, because some will be direct seeded, but some will be transplanted. Our first round of beets will be transplant, so there is a chance of frost still. So we'll use frost cloth to ensure that it doesn't freeze during the daytime, nighttime, and then we'll put clear plastic over it probably an hour before dark, just to lock in that last bit of daytime heat, and then we'll remove the clear plastic throughout the day. So I'll kind of show you how that goes if you're following along here, but let's grab this clear plastic and drag it on over. Okay, so I got that first one stretched out. I'm not too concerned about too many bags at this point because I'm just gonna have to move them to put the black one on. But I do need to cover 2 more beds and a few more that way, because it's gonna be 4 beds of early season carrots, succession 1 of beets for 2, and then succession 2 beets for 2 beds. So I need to go like 4 more. So I'll just cover all 6, and then we'll try to black out this whole piece. Okay, so there's the clear plastic all the way down. Ended up covering 10, which is fine. And again, a little short. This is just some vapor barrier, basically heavy duty vapor barrier from your local hardware store. So I just cut it in half, which it ends up being a little bit short. So now that those are down, we'll go find a big silage tarp. And I believe the one I'm gonna grab is an 8, so it should cover into here somewhere, and then we'll run a 6. Because what I actually want to do too is I want to cover all this. We put plants right here for the nursery, and this grass is getting pretty bad. So I'd like to actually cover out past until the nursery sale, and then we can pull it back just to kill this grass. So I'll have to grab some bags too. So I always try to cover the gardens in the fall, but it never seems to happen. Like I get some down, but then we run out of time, and honestly we just get burnt out. So we end up just running a black silage tarp. It's 2-sided, white on one side, black on the other, and then we'll just cover it. And what it allows it to do is it keeps your soil from blowing away in windy conditions, which is very windy here, and then it also blocks the weeds, so any weed seeds won't germinate. So we use it quite heavily and throughout the year between crops, and then at the beginning of the season just to kill off any weeds that do sprout. Okay, so this one's not perfect, but being that it's only going to be there for probably a month, I was just going to use it. If I was going to be putting this down for any length of time because of the holes, I wouldn't probably use it, but short term, so we'll make it work. Okay, so you can kind of see what I did here. I know that I need the first 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So by putting this seam here and then the seam for the black tarps there, when the time comes, I can remove this entire black tarp, pull this off, pull this just back the 2 that I need, ball it up for now, and then leave that tarp there longer. So when you're laying these things out, you really just want to think through your seams, and then also like where your sprinklers would be. So I know that it's every 3 blocks, and then it's 6, and then another 3 on the end for sprinklers. So just really planning it out so that you don't have to move more sandbags and open more ground than you need to use at that given time. So because it's so early, I know that I'm not really going to need to water with my main irrigation. I might just run misters if it's a nice warm sunny day, but there should be enough ground moisture that it should be fine. So like I say, I can just open this, seed, plant, and then plant these 2 weeks later. So just think it through. Okay, so you can see I got this other one laid out. And just one thing I also wanted to mention on silage tarps is I always recommend anywhere where you're doing a seam overlap, do like a minimum of 2 feet and bag the living heck out of it, because that's going to be a spot where the wind can get underneath, and then loosen the bags and slowly slide it, and then once it gets under, it's gone. So bag heavy on seams, and then I also always try to overlap it so that like the prevailing wind always comes towards me. So I'll always make sure that this tarp is under that one so that it doesn't have a catch point for the wind. I mean, yeah, the wind sometimes goes the other way, but predominantly I always try to overlap so that the wind doesn't catch that next piece. And then same thing up in this corner, the wind comes heavy from that corner, so I actually lay pipe. It's like 1-inch pipe that's left over from the roll-up sides on my greenhouse. I mean, you could use like real thin drill steel, or even rebar would work, like 10-20 foot lengths of rebar, and then bags on top of that. And what that does is it just creates more contact points throughout that tarp so the wind can't get underneath. So just a little bit of a point there for you. So you can see here, this is kind of an example of a tarp that's been down for I think about 2 weeks. And the wind just slowly works into these areas right here where there's no bag. Puffs it up like that and then just keeps lifting it until it pulls these bags in slightly to create slack, these bags in to create slack, and then eventually it just will lift it, pull those bags right off. You can see it's already pulled it away from the greenhouse. So they're not ideal, but they do serve a purpose. You do have to come out and maintenance them, you know, re-pull them tight. Obviously when it rains, it helps. Water on them holds it down, because we run a raised bed system, so they're kind of up and down. So when the water pools up in the walkways, it holds them down a little bit better. But this would be an example where you'd want to overlap this one over top of that one, because the wind's always blowing this way. So that's another job for another day, but tarps on the farm, they're a necessity. Keeps you from doing a lot of weeding. Okay, so we're gonna lay a few more tarps down here. In behind me is our fall planting of garlic, which is already starting to come up. But what we did is we ended up running out of garlic. We didn't have time to get it in the ground. So there's 3 more beds here in this block that we're gonna expose. I'll prep them in the next couple days, and we're gonna run a bed of shallots. I think we moved our bed of leeks in here, and then I have 1 spare bed. So if we have extra onions that don't sell before they get too big in the seedling sale, I'll leave that open, and then we'll plant them out here, and we can sell them off as like a spring onion. I always recommend doing that. Like, don't feel like you got to plant everything, because sometimes the plan does change. So I always like having a few empty beds just for that, those one-off plantings, especially when you're running a seedling sale. I hate wasting it. You've put all that time and effort in. If you have a bed, you may as well plant it, especially if you have enough. So what I'm going to do here is I think it's a six bed tarp here. So I'm going to pull that, and then there's a 3, and then another piled up one. So I'm gonna strip all this, and then I'm gonna go to the edge of this garlic and onion block, and then we'll start covering that way and try to get it covered for at least 3 weeks before we start planting things out. So let's dive into that. Okay, so you can see that I just opened up the last 3 blocks, or beds of that garlic block, and the weeds aren't quite dead yet. They're yellowing up, but they're not quite dead. So what I'll actually do is I'll take that 3 that I pulled off, and I'll lay it back down on here for probably another 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't think we plant this out until middle of April, so I got a few weeks left before I need to pull it off. So we'll bite the bullet, recover it with a 3. Because it was a 6 folded up, so at least with a 3 I can pull it off and then fold it up and be done with it for the season once I am ready to get in here. So sometimes that's a little bit of cover to uncover, but it makes the most sense. And then we got 2 6s back to back there, and then I'll probably steal some tarps from down that far end and drag them this way. The reason I'm working from here that way is because I got the fence to deal with. If I start there and work this way, I might end up with weird uncovered beds, where there I can take the excess and just stack it up against the fence. So anytime in the early spring that I'm looking to cover blocks, I'm always looking at the map first. So this was the one that we were covering today, and I know that these are my 2 earliest plantings, or 3 earliest plantings right here. So I'm going to prioritize putting a tarp on this, but then say you jump over here down towards block 5, where we're not planting in here until late July, early August.
because I don't have enough tarps, I just keep buying more as I can. I'll leave this open. I'm not gonna stress that I don't have this block covered. I might weed it in the meantime, but I won't cover it and panic about it. I'll put tarps where anything early is gonna be. And then once I open this and plant it out, then I'll bounce that tarp over to a block like these two where they're later in the season. And then same thing down here. So block 7 is gonna be fairly early. I got April, May, and I know it's bad. A little bit of block 8, but again, I only really need to focus on the first 6. The second 6 can wait, because once these 4 open, or 6, I could pull this tarp over and then cover this 6, right? So it's just trying to be a little bit strategic as you go, not feeling like you have to buy all of the equipment in your first year, 2 years, 3 years. Just if you pick away at it and buy a little bit every year and just strategize a little bit, make your plans, make your moves where you need to, it's a little bit more cost effective on the wallet, and you can still get the same outcome. So I hope that that little tip there helps you.
All right, you guys, well, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you got some value out of that talk about silage tarps on the farm. It falls down to just whether you think it's going to be a good fit for your system. On our farm, it works well for now, so we'll continue using them. So until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.